Do you ever notice how people love to ask, so, what's new? What are you working on? Like they're entitled to know, like your journey is some open book for their entertainment? Let me tell you something. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to your life. We live in a world where oversharing is the norm. You're supposed to post your dreams before you even take the first step. You're supposed to tell the world your plans before they're fully formed. But here's the truth. Your energy is sacred, and your dreams deserve protection. There's something deeply personal about the journey you're on, whether it's your career, your relationships, your struggles, or your dreams. This path belongs to you. But too often we let people in who haven't earned the right to be there. We offer them a front row seat to our lives when, in reality, they should be watching from a distance, or maybe not watching at all. We've been conditioned to believe that sharing is always a good thing, that vulnerability means full transparency, that if we don't tell people what's going on, we're being secretive, cold, or even rude. But here's the truth. Not everyone is meant to have full access to you. Some people haven't earned it, some people will never appreciate it, and some people will misuse it. Think about the seats in a theater. The front row is reserved for those who are deeply engaged, who are invested in the experience, who want to see every detail up close. But not everyone in the audience deserves that level of access. Some people are just there for the gossip. Some show up only when things are entertaining. Some will sit in the crowd and criticize every move you make, not because they could do better, but because judging you is easier than working on themselves. So why do we keep handing out front row seats to people who don't even deserve standing room tickets? Part of it is validation. We want to be seen. We want people to recognize our efforts, to cheer us on, to support us. And in a perfect world, they would. But in reality, some people won't clap for you not because you're not worthy, but because they don't want to. Because your growth reminds them of their stagnation. Because your dreams make them feel small. Because they'd rather you stay where you are so they don't have to confront where they aren't. And then there's another kind of person, the one who smiles while sitting in the front row but secretly hopes you fail. They listen intently, not at all the right moments, maybe even say, "I'm so happy for you," but behind closed doors, they're betting against you. They're waiting for the moment they can say, "I knew it wouldn't work out." This is why discernment is everything. You have to be selective about who gets access to your thoughts, your struggles, your aspirations. Because when you invite the wrong people into your world, their energy, their doubts, and their opinions start taking up space that should be reserved for your own belief in yourself. And sometimes the most dangerous critics aren't the loud ones. They're the quiet ones who plant subtle doubts. Are you sure that's a good idea? That sounds risky. What if it doesn't work out? They disguise their doubt as concern, but what they're really saying is, I wouldn't take that risk, so I don't think you should either. And if you let those voices in, they start to shape your own. You start second-guessing yourself. You hesitate when you should be moving forward. You start playing small because someone else convinced you that your dreams were too big. But here's the thing. You don't owe anyone a front row seat. You don't owe anyone a play-by-came of your life. You don't have to explain your every decision. You don't have to justify your path to people who were never meant to walk it with you. Not everyone who asks how you're doing genuinely cares. Not everyone who listens to your dreams wants to see them come true. Not everyone who claps for you is celebrating you. Some people just want to keep watching, waiting for you to slip, waiting for the moment they can say, I told you so. So be intentional, be protective, be selective, because the fewer people you have in the front row, the more peace you'll have in your journey. We live in a world that glorifies noise. People document every moment, share every thought, and narrate their lives like an open book for the world to see. There's this pressure to constantly update, to prove that you're making moves, to let people know what's next. But in the midst of all this noise, something important gets lost: power. Because real power, it doesn't announce itself. It doesn't beg for validation. It doesn't need an audience. It moves in silence. Silence is misunderstood. People associate it with weakness, with hesitation, with having nothing to say. But silence is not the absence of thought. It's the presence of control. It's choosing not to waste your words on people who don't deserve them. It's understanding that your energy is valuable, and not every conversation, argument, or explanation is worth engaging in. There's something powerful about knowing things but choosing not to say them, about being aware but refusing to react, about having a plan but keeping it to yourself. When you stop giving people access to your thoughts, your emotions, and your next moves, you take away their ability to influence them. Because every time you speak, you give something away. You give away your focus, you give away your strategy, you give away the element of surprise. Think about the most successful people you know, not the loud ones who are always talking about what they're going to do, but the ones who just do it. The ones who work in silence, who show up when it matters, who let their results make the noise. Those are the people who understand the power of restraint. And the thing about silence, it makes people uncomfortable because people expect noise. They expect explanations. They expect reactions. They expect to be let in. And when you don't give them that, it forces them to wonder. It forces them to respect the unknown. When you're silent, people don't know your next move. They can't predict your steps. They can't prepare for what's coming. And that alone is power. Because when people can't anticipate you, they can't control you, they can't manipulate your emotions, plant doubts in your mind, or influence your decisions. But silence isn't just about withholding words, it's about mastering them. It's about knowing when to speak and when to hold back. It's about choosing to respond rather than react. It's about realizing that not everything requires your input, your defense, your explanation. Sometimes silence is the best response to criticism. You don't have to justify yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You don't have to explain yourself to those who only listen so they can find something to use against you. Sometimes silence is the best way to protect your energy. Not everything deserves your reaction. Not every argument needs to be won. Not every battle is worth fighting. Some things are best left unanswered, not because you don't have something to say, but because saying it wouldn't change anything. And sometimes silence is the best strategy. It allows you to move without interference, to build without distraction, to grow without external noise shaping your path. When you stop broadcasting your every move, you take back control. You work in peace, you make progress without the weight of expectations or the influence of opinions. Because in the end, the loudest moves are made in the quietest moments. Everything you do, every thought you entertain, every conversation you engage in, it all costs energy. And just like money, energy is a currency. But unlike money, you can't earn more of it on demand. You wake up every day with a limited amount, and how you choose to spend it determines everything. Your mood, your focus, your progress, and ultimately, your life. Yet most people treat their energy like it's unlimited. They give it away freely to people who drain them, to situations that don't serve them, to distractions that steal their focus. They let energy slip through their fingers, wasting it on arguments that don't matter, on proving points to people who will never understand, on pleasing those who will never be satisfied. And then they wonder why they feel exhausted, frustrated, stuck. If money was leaking out of your bank account every second, you would do everything in your power to stop it. You would track where it's going, plug the holes, and make sure it's being used wisely. But when it comes to energy, most people don't have the same level of awareness. They spin without thinking. They let people, habits, and distractions drain them without questioning if they're worth the cost. But every interaction is an energy transaction. That argument you had over something meaningless, energy spent. That time you spent worrying about what someone else thinks, energy spent. That moment you got lost in comparison, scrolling through someone else's highlight reel, energy spent. And what did you get in return? Did it move you forward? Did it bring you peace? Did it make you stronger? If the answer is no, then it was a bad investment. Because just like money, energy needs to be invested, not wasted. You wouldn't hand over your paycheck to someone who has no intention of giving anything back. So why would you give your time, your focus, your emotional effort to people in situations that only leave you drained? It's not selfish to protect your energy. It's necessary. You have to learn to budget it, to decide where it goes and who gets access to it, to cut off the leaks, the people who drain you, the conversations that go nowhere, the habits that deplete you without adding anything of value. And once you start treating energy like the currency it is, you begin to understand its value. You stop spending it on things that don't serve you. You start investing it in things that bring growth, clarity, and peace. You invest it in relationships that uplift you, in work that fuels you, in habits that strengthen you. You pour it into becoming better instead of proving something, into moving forward instead of looking back, into creating rather than consuming. And the moment you do that, life changes. because suddenly you have more to give to the things that actually matter. You're no longer running on empty. You're no longer letting the wrong people dictate your energy. You're no longer feeling depleted from battles that weren't even worth fighting. Because when you understand that energy is currency, you stop letting the world spend it for you. Every time you share a big dream, a bold decision, or an unconventional path, you invite people's opinions. And while some will support you, many won't. Not because you can't do it, not because it's impossible, but because they can't see themselves doing it. And so they project that limitation onto you. People don't always realize they're doing it. It's rarely intentional, and it often comes from a place of their own unhealed experiences, failures, or insecurities. But make no mistake, when someone doubts you, it says more about their mindset than it does about your ability. They'll say, "Are you sure that's a good idea? That sounds really risky. Most people fail at that." What they really mean is, "I wouldn't have the courage to do that. I failed at something like that, so I assume you will too. I don't understand your vision, so I can't support it." This happens all the time. Someone stays in a job they hate because a parent once told them that security is more important than passion. Someone hesitates to start a business because they saw a friend try and fail. Someone gives up on a dream because the people around them kept reminding them of how hard it would be. But just because something scares someone else doesn't mean it should scare you. Just because someone else couldn't do it doesn't mean you can't. Just because someone has decided to settle doesn't mean you have to. The truth is, most people operate from fear. They make decisions based on avoiding failure rather than chasing success. They choose comfort over growth. They shrink themselves to fit into a life that feels predictable instead of stepping into the unknown. And when they see someone else doing what they were too afraid to do, it triggers them. It forces them to confront their own choices. And instead of facing that discomfort, they try to pull you back down to their level. It's not always malicious. Sometimes it's disguised as concern. "I just don't want to see you get hurt. I want you to be realistic. I'm just looking out for you." But there's a difference between genuine advice and fear-based projection. Genuine advice comes with solutions, encouragement, and perspective. Projection comes with doubt, hesitation, and a long list of reasons why you shouldn't even try. That's why you have to be careful who you listen to. Not everyone is qualified to give you advice. Not everyone sees the world the way you do. Not everyone has the capacity to dream as big as you dream. And the people who doubt you the most, they're often the ones who have given up on their own dreams. They doubt their own, and they assume the limits they've placed on themselves apply to everyone. But they don't. You are not them. You are not bound by their fears, their past failures, or their limited vision. You are capable of more than they can imagine, and that scares them. Because if you succeed, it means they were wrong. It means they could have tried harder. It means their excuses weren't valid. And some people would rather stay comfortable in their own self-imposed limitations than admit that more is possible. So the next time someone tells you that your dream is too big, your idea is too risky, or your goals are unrealistic, ask yourself, is this my fear or is it theirs? Because the moment you stop letting other people's fears become your own, you become unstoppable. Real growth doesn't happen under a spotlight. It doesn't happen when you're being watched, when you're constantly explaining yourself, or when you're seeking validation. It happens in private, in the quiet, in the moments when no one is looking, no one is clapping, and no one is giving you permission. But we live in a world that tells us otherwise. We've been conditioned to think that every step of progress needs to be documented, shared, and announced. That if no one sees the work, it doesn't count. That if you're not posting about it, you're not really doing it. But the truth is, the most important transformations happen behind closed doors. Think about nature. A seed doesn't grow in the open. It's buried in the dark, underground, unseen. It breaks apart before it breaks through. It grows roots before it ever shows signs of life. And only after enough time, effort, and nurturing does it finally push through the surface. But what if that seed was constantly being dug up to check its progress? What if it was exposed too soon? It wouldn't survive. It wouldn't have the strength to stand. And that's exactly what happens when we try to grow while constantly seeking external validation. We stunt our own progress by sharing too soon, by explaining our every move, by looking for reassurance instead of putting in the quiet work. And in doing so, we invite unnecessary opinions, doubts, and distractions that slow us down. Because not everyone needs to know what you're working on. Not everyone deserves access to your process. Some things need time to develop before they're ready for the world. When you grow in private, you remove outside noise. You focus on the work itself, not on how it looks to others. You give yourself space to make mistakes, to learn, to evolve without pressure or expectation. And this isn't just about career goals or success. This applies to healing, to personal growth, to becoming the kind of person you want to be. The hardest changes, the ones that truly transform you, don't happen in public. No one sees the moment you decide to let go of something that's been weighing you down. No one sees the late nights spent battling self-doubt. No one sees the discipline it takes to break old habits, the courage it takes to walk away from what no longer serves you, the patience it takes to build something from nothing. And that's how it should be, because growth is fragile. It needs protection. When you expose it too soon, you risk letting the wrong people influence it. You risk letting doubt creep in. You risk changing your path to fit other people's expectations instead of staying true to your own. Some people will tell you to put yourself out there, to show your progress, to prove you're working. But why? Who are you proving it to? If the work is real, the results will speak for themselves. The most successful, resilient, unstoppable people aren't the ones constantly talking about what they're going to do. They're the ones who just do it. The ones who disappear for a while and come back transformed. The ones who understand that the real work happens when no one is watching. Because when you grow in private, you grow for you. Not for applause, not for validation, not for approval. And when you finally emerge stronger, wiser, unstoppable, it won't be because you were performing for an audience. It will be because you did the work in the quiet when no one was looking. We live in a world where people love to talk about what they're going to do. They make announcements, set public goals, and share every step of their process. But here's the thing. Talking about it isn't the same as doing it. There's a certain thrill in telling people your plans. It feels like progress. You get validation before you've even started. You get applause for something you haven't yet achieved. And that can be dangerous because sometimes that validation tricks you into thinking you've already won. Gives you a false sense of accomplishment, making it easier to slow down, lose focus, or even quit. Out of the mountains of that's why the most powerful thing you can do is stay quiet and work. When you let your results do the talking, you eliminate distractions. You remove the pressure of expectations. You stop worrying about proving yourself to others and start focusing on actually becoming the person you say you want to be. Because here's the truth. Results speak louder than words. The person who constantly talks about writing a book but never actually sits down to write is just a dreamer. The person who tells everyone they're going to start a business but never takes action is just a talker. The person who announces they're going to change their life but never follows through is just seeking attention. But the person who moves in silence, who grinds when no one is watching, who disappears for a while and comes back transformed, that's the person who actually gets things done. Success doesn't come from convincing others that you're working. It comes from actually working. It comes from showing up when no one is there to clap for you. It comes from putting in the hours without needing anyone to notice. It comes from discipline, from sacrifice, from a level of commitment that doesn't require an audience. Think about the greats, the ones who truly make an impact. Do you think they spent their time explaining their every move? No. They were too busy doing the work. They understood that action is the only thing that matters. And the best part, when you let your results do the talking, people have no choice but to respect you. You don't have to convince them. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to argue with doubters, defend your choices, or seek approval. The results speak for themselves. Because at the end of the day, people remember what you did, not what you said you were going to do. So stop announcing, stop explaining, stop wasting energy trying to prove yourself before you've done the work. Just do it. Let your progress be the proof. Let your success be the response. Let your results make the noise. The most powerful moves are made in silence. The deepest growth happens when no one is watching. The strongest energy is protected, not wasted. And the loudest statements are made through results, not words. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to your life. Not everyone's opinions should shape your decisions. and not everyone's fears should become your own. When you stop explaining yourself, when you stop seeking validation, when you stop letting outside voices influence your path, you take back control, protect your energy, move with intention, grow in private, let your work speak for itself. Because at the end of the day, the people who talk the most often do the least, and the ones who truly succeed are the ones too busy doing the work.